Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The beginnings of Islam in Mexico. Islam may sound foreign when associated with Mexico, a land that for centuries has been synonymous with Catholic church bells, mariachi music, and Latin culture. However, traces of Islam in Mexican soil actually date back long before the modern era, even to the time of Spanish colonization of the Americas. When Spain began conquering territories in the New World in the early 16th century, they brought with them slaves and laborers from North Africa and Andalusia. Among them was a small group of Muslims known as Moriscos, Moors from the Iberian Peninsula. They were descendants of Muslims who had flourished in Andalusia for nearly 8 centuries, before Islamic rule ended in Spain in 1492. After the fall of Granada, the last Islamic kingdom in Andalusia, many Muslims were forced to convert to Christianity under Spanish Catholic rule. However, some continued to hold on to their faith in secret. As Spanish expeditions and colonies opened in the New World, including Mexico, some of them were swept along with the wave of exploration, either as sailors, slaves, or forced laborers. It is in this context that the earliest traces of Islam in Mexico emerge, albeit in a faint historical shadow. The Moriscos lived under immense pressure as the Spanish Inquisition enforced harsh laws against anyone suspected of remaining Muslim or Jewish. They could be tortured, imprisoned, or even burned alive if caught practicing non-Christian rituals. Therefore, Muslims who arrived in Mexico could not openly reveal their identities. They hid their faith behind Spanish names and pseudo-Catholic rituals, while deep down they still held on to the teachings of monotheism. Many historical accounts mention that some Moriscos left behind traces of the Arabic language, the custom of washing hands and feet before prayer, or a simple lifestyle reminiscent of Islamic values. Unfortunately, over the following centuries, the Islamic influence brought by the Moriscos virtually disappeared. Spanish colonialism and the dominance of the Catholic Church led to the systematic erasure of all elements of Islam from the social and cultural life of the community. There were no mosques, no madrasas, no Muslim communities able to withstand the pressure. Yet although Islam disappeared from Mexico for more than 3 centuries, that tiny seed never truly died. History records that in the 19th and 20th centuries, Islam began to re-emerge. This time not from Africa or Andalusia, but from a new wave of Middle Eastern immigrants seeking a new life in Latin American lands. This story marked the beginning of the modern revival of Islam in Mexico, which slowly grew from a small community to become part of the country's mosaic of religious diversity. The modern revival of Islam in the 20th century. After centuries of Islam seemingly disappearing from Mexican history, its revival began to slowly become apparent in the 20th century. However, this time, Islam arrived not through conquest or large-scale trade, as in the Andalusian period, but through waves of migration, spiritual quests, and cross-cultural encounters. Immigrants from the Middle East. The beginning of the Islamic revival in Mexico can be traced to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when scores of immigrants from Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, and Egypt arrived in Mexico. They came seeking a new life, escaping the political and economic turmoil that gripped the Middle East under the crumbling Ottoman Empire. Strikingly, most of these early immigrants from the Middle East were Maronite or Orthodox Christians, not Muslims. However, their presence paved the way for relations between Mexico and the Arab world, both in trade and social matters. Among subsequent waves of immigrants, a small number of committed Muslims emerged, settling in major cities like Mexico City, Puebla, and Torreon. These Muslim immigrants did not immediately form large religious communities. They lived scattered, intermarried with locals, and adapted to Mexico's deeply Catholic culture. However, they brought with them Islamic values in their daily lives, honesty in business, simplicity, and respect for family, which later attracted the attention of some Mexicans. Local converts. The second wave emerged in the late 20th century, particularly after the 1980s, as the world became more connected through media, films, and then the internet. It was during this time that a number of Mexicans from Catholic backgrounds became interested in learning about Islam. Some of them learned about Islam through interactions with Muslims from Spain, the United States, and Morocco. Others discovered Islam after researching world religions and finding in the Quran the answers they had been searching for about divinity, justice, and the meaning of life. This phenomenon gave rise to a small community of Mexican converts who sought to practice Islamic law in a very different environment. They learned to read the Quran, wear the hijab, and abandon alcohol and forbidden foods. All of this with strong determination, despite often facing questions or even rejection from their surroundings. The establishment of the first centers and mosques. This revival became even more evident with the establishment of the first Islamic centers in Mexico. One of the oldest and most well-known is the Centro Cultural Islamico de Mexico, located in Mexico City. This center served as a gathering place for converts, a place of learning, and a space for preaching for anyone interested in learning about Islam. Furthermore, several Islamic organizations from the Middle East and Europe began actively sending books, imams, and assistants to build small mosques. Mosques served not only as places of prayer, but also as centers for community and social activities. In the 1990s, a unique phenomenon emerged in southern Mexico, specifically in Chiapas, where a number of indigenous Mayans began to learn about Islam through preaching from Spanish Muslims. From this emerged the indigenous Muslim community that remains known today, a symbol of the most compelling Islamic revival in Latin America. Islam as a new spiritual path. For many Mexican converts to Islam, Islam is not just a new religion, but a way of life that offers direction and serenity. They find in Islamic teachings universal values, peace, social justice, respect for knowledge, and a balance between this world and the hereafter. For others, Islam also represents a form of spiritual rebellion against modern materialism and moral decline, which they feel have drifted far from authentic human values. By converting to Islam, they feel they have found a new identity, not just as Mexicans, but as part of the broader human race. This revival marks a new chapter in the history of Islam in Mexico. From a small community of immigrants and seekers of truth, Islam has slowly grown into a visible part of the country's religious mosaic. Islamic communities and centers in Mexico. As the 20th century drew to a close, the seeds of Islam, which had previously only slowly sprouted in Mexican soil, finally began to take shape. From mere individual converts and scattered immigrants, small organized Muslim communities began to form, with mosques, educational institutions, and social activities. Although still small in number compared to the Catholic community, which comprises over 80% of the population, the presence of Islamic communities in Mexico symbolizes a new diversity in the nation's religious identity. Mosques and Islamic centers in major cities. Modern Muslim life in Mexico is concentrated in several major cities such as Mexico City, Guadalajara, Torreon, and Monterrey. In the capital stands one of the oldest and most active Islamic centers, the Centro Cultural Islamico de Mexico. This center serves not only as a place of worship, but also as a center for culture, education, and dawah, Islamic outreach. This is where converts learn to read the Quran, understand the fundamentals of Islam, and receive social support from fellow Muslims. In addition, there is the Centro Educativo de la Comunidad Musulmana de Mexico, which plays a vital role in introducing Islam to the general public through interfaith dialogue, seminars, and social activities. In several other cities, small mosques have sprung up, some as simple as rented homes, others built with the help of the international Muslim community. These mosques serve as spiritual oases amidst the hustle and bustle of Catholic culture, where Mexican Muslims find peace and a sense of community. Indigenous Muslim communities in Chiapas. One of the most fascinating stories of the development of Islam in Mexico is the emergence of indigenous Muslim communities in the southern region of Chiapas. In the city of San Cristobal de las Casas, surrounded by mountains and still steeped in Mayan culture, stands the Tzotzil Muslim community. This community began to grow in the early 1990s, when several indigenous residents learned about Islam through the preaching of a group of Spanish Muslims who had previously lived in the region. These Spanish preachers were converts to Islam, inspired by the teachings of Andalusian Islam and seeing similarities between indigenous Mayan culture and Islam, particularly in terms of simplicity, respect for nature, and communal living. Today, the Tzotzil Muslim community has its own mosque, Masjid al-Kautsar, and is one of the most recognized indigenous Muslim communities in Latin America. They conduct congregational prayers, study the Quran, and even teach Islam to the younger generation in their local language. The sight of Mayan men wearing white robes and skull caps in the middle of the Chiapas highlands is a unique symbol of cultural fusion, proof that Islam can take root anywhere without erasing local identities. The role of dawah and social media. In the digital age, Islamic dawah in Mexico is expanding through the internet and social media. Many converts have begun creating YouTube channels, podcasts, or educational websites to introduce Islam in Spanish. Through these platforms, Islam is no longer seen as a foreign religion from the Middle East, but as a universal religion that can be understood by anyone. Several international dawah organizations, such as the Islamic Cultural Center Latin America, also provide dawah materials, Spanish translations of the Quran, and training for imams and religious teachers. Social activities are also an important means of promoting Islam. The Muslim community in Mexico City, for example, frequently organizes food distributions for the poor, blood drives, and acts of solidarity during natural disasters. Through these activities, they strive to present a compassionate image of Islam, not the violence often misrepresented by Western media. Diversity and unity. One of the hallmarks of the Muslim community in Mexico is its diversity. There are Muslims from various backgrounds: Arab, South Asian, African, and even indigenous Mexicans. They come from different schools of thought and cultures, yet they live side by side peacefully. Mosques in Mexico often hold congregational prayers across schools of thought, break the fast gatherings during Ramadan, and study the Quran together regardless of their origins. This demonstrates that although the Muslim community in Mexico is small, the spirit of brotherhood, Ukhuwah Islamiyah, among them is very strong. From big cities to remote mountains, Islam in Mexico has now found its niche. It is growing slowly but surely as a seed of faith that blends with the land, culture, and soul of the local people. Muslim identity and challenges in Mexico. Being Muslim in Mexico is not easy. In a country where almost 90% of the population is Catholic and where church traditions, religious celebrations, and an open Latin culture are highly valued, a Muslim must fight hard to maintain their identity. But that is precisely where the strength of Islam in Mexico is seen, in the steadfastness and sincerity of its adherents, living amidst a vast array of different cultures, converts, and the search for a new identity. Most Muslims in Mexico today are converts, that is, those who were previously Catholic and decided to embrace Islam. This process is often challenging. Many face rejection from family, friends, or social circles. For Mexicans identified with Christian symbols such as crosses, statues of Mary, and weekly church services, the decision to convert to a new religion is often seen as strange, even a betrayal of family traditions. However, many converts find inner peace after converting to Islam. They feel that Islamic teachings provide a spiritual discipline that has been missing in modern life, such as the obligation to pray 5 times a day, fasting, and prohibitions against excess. A female convert from Guadalajara once said, "Islam allowed me to know God without intermediaries, without statues, without complicated rituals. I spoke directly to the Creator, and that gave me a peace I had never felt before." The hijab and a symbol of courage. For Mexican Muslim women, wearing the hijab presents a unique challenge. In a culture accustomed to revealing clothing and a freewheeling social lifestyle, the hijab often arouses curiosity or even suspicion. Some still misunderstand the hijab as a symbol of oppression, but for many Mexican women, the hijab is a symbol of freedom and self-respect. On the streets of Mexico City, the sight of women wearing the hijab is now becoming commonplace. They work, attend school, and even engage in business like everyone else. Although few in number, their courage inspires a younger generation of Mexican Muslims to remain proud of their Islamic identity, the challenge of halal food and worship. In addition to social challenges, Muslims in Mexico also face practical obstacles in practicing Islam, particularly regarding halal food. Halal restaurants are still very limited, and most Muslims must cook at home or seek out imported meat stores that sell halal certified meat. Some communities even work together to import halal meat from the United States or form small halal cooperatives in larger cities. The same applies to worship. Not all cities have mosques or prayer rooms, so Muslims often have to adapt. Many use small spaces in their homes, offices, or parks for congregational prayers. However, despite their simplicity, their passion for maintaining prayer on time is strong, for they see it as a tangible sign of steadfastness in their faith amidst trials. Public and media perspectives. The image of Islam in Mexico is still often influenced by global news coverage of the Middle East and conflict. Some people still associate Islam with violence or extremism, especially after major events like September 11, 2001. However, this perception is slowly beginning to change. Through interfaith dialogue, social activities, and local media, Mexicans are beginning to see a different face of Islam, one of peace, simplicity, and compassion. Many Catholic priests and leaders are now open to discussions with Muslim figures. Some Catholic churches and educational institutions have even invited Muslim clerics to explain Islamic teachings directly in order to build understanding and tolerance between religious communities. Islam blended with local culture. Interestingly, Islam in Mexico did not come to replace local culture, but rather blended with it. In some communities, especially in Chiapas, local traditions such as art, music, and mutual cooperation are maintained, only adapted to Islamic values. Muslim weddings there, for example, are often accompanied by traditional Mayan music, but without alcohol and with Islamic etiquette. This demonstrates that Islam can coexist with Mexican identity without erasing its cultural roots. Although small in number, Mexican Muslims have demonstrated extraordinary strength. Amid social pressures and limited facilities, they remain steadfast in practicing Islamic law, building mosques, educating children, and promoting Islam with its noble morals. They are proof that Islam is not just a religion for one nation or language, but a blessing for all humanity. Even in the land of mariachis and tortillas, the light of Islam continues to shine. The future of Islam in Mexico. After a long journey from the faint traces of the Moriscos in the 16th century to the rise of modern Muslim communities in the 20th century, Islam in Mexico now stands at a new historical crossroads. Although still a small minority, the future of Islam in the land of the mariachis looks increasingly promising, as the younger generation grows interested in spirituality and the search for a deeper meaning in life. A new generation of Mexican Muslims. The current generation of Mexican Muslims differs from their predecessors. They were born and raised as Muslims, not converts who only discovered Islam as adults. This generation of young people is fluent in Spanish and Arabic, active on social media, and open to cross-cultural dialogue. Many of them studied in the Middle East, at Islamic universities in Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, and then returned to Mexico to become teachers, imams, and preachers. They bring a new spirit, presenting an Islam that is intelligent, tolerant, and rooted in patriotism. In Muslim community schools, children are taught not only to read the Quran, but also to understand Islamic history and the importance of being good Mexican citizens. They learn that being Muslim does not mean rejecting Mexican culture, but rather purifying it of anything that contradicts Islamic teachings. Dawah with a new face. The development of technology and digital media has opened up significant opportunities for Islamic dawah in Mexico. Today, many young preachers in Muslim communities are active on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, sharing content about Islamic teachings in Spanish in a light and modern way. Through this approach, Islam is beginning to be recognized not as a foreign religion from Arabia, but as a universal religion that speaks directly to the hearts of people. Some Mexican Muslim influencers have even managed to attract thousands of non-Muslim followers with their gentle, knowledge-based dawah style, which emphasizes morals. They preach not only with words, but with concrete examples from their daily lives: honesty, discipline, and compassion for others. International cooperation and dawah support. The future of Islam in Mexico is also aided by the support of international institutions, both from the Arab world and other Islamic countries. Assistance continues to be provided in the form of translating the Quran into Spanish, sending religious teachers, and building new mosques in several cities. Several international organizations, such as the Islamic Cultural Center for Latin America and the World Assembly of Muslim Youth, WAMY, are actively helping to strengthen the structure of the Muslim community in the country. However, what is most important is the independence of local Muslims. They do not want to rely solely on foreign countries, but rather to build an Islam with Mexican characteristics. An Islam that is integrated with culture, welcoming to the community, and strong in moral values. Islam and interfaith dialogue. One of the keys to the future of Islam in Mexico lies in interfaith dialogue. Many Muslim leaders now recognize that peace and acceptance can only be achieved through understanding and cooperation. Consequently, various interfaith activities are increasingly being held, breaking the fast together in churches, interfaith discussions, and charity events involving Catholics and Muslims. Through this dialogue, Islam in Mexico appears not as a competitor to other religions, but as a companion in the nation's spiritual journey. A faith that teaches the values of humanity, justice, and peace. The light of Islam in the land of the mariachi. Mexico is a land of warm culture, vibrant music, and a strong spirit of brotherhood. All of this gives Islam a great opportunity to be accepted, not through political power, but through the power of morals and compassion. From large cities to remote villages in Chiapas, from converts to Islam to the new generation of Muslims, all are part of a small wave that continues to flow, carrying the light of Islam throughout the country. Just as the light of Islam once shone in Andalusia and inspired the world with knowledge and civilization, now that light is beginning to shine in new lands, among the mountains, cornfields, and the sound of mariachi music. They may still be few in number, but like a small candle in a dark night, their light is enough to guide many souls to the truth. Conclusion. Islam in Mexico is a story of patience, searching, and awakening. It is not about numbers, but about the sincerity of faith. And as long as there are hearts seeking true peace, Islam will continue to live everywhere, including in the land of Mexico, far from the east, but close to the light of truth.